America, this story, I don't know where to start. Now, our prisons are bad. Yes, our prisons are bad. And they don't really correct the problem, they just make the problem worse. But what's going down in Maryland is a short cry of a Jesus take the wheel, right? 13 correction officers have been indicted in Maryland accused of aiding a gang's drug scheme. More than a dozen Maryland state prison guards helped a dangerous national gang operate a drug trafficking and money laundering scheme from behind bars that involved cash payments, sex, access to fancy cars, and even more. 13 female correction officers essentially handed over control of the Baltimore jail to gang leaders. The officers were charged on Tuesday with federal racketeering with a federal racketeering indictment. Now here's how the story goes down. The Black Gorilla family, which is a big crime family that's been running for years and years and years and years and years, have used these guards to smuggle in cell phones, prescription drug pills, and other contrabands in their underwear, their shoes, and even their hair. And what these guards do, they bring this stuff in to the prisoners sell them to other prisoners, and send that money back out. One gang member allegedly used proceeds to buy luxury cars, including Mercedes-Benz and BMWs, and allowed the officers to drive them. What makes the story even crazier is that these correction officers, are even having sex with the prisoners in the prison. Three of them have tattoos in one of the prisoners' name on their neck. Trayvon was on their neck, or Tavon, was on their neck. One had it on their wrist. I mean, what is happening in this country when don't get me wrong, I'm not saying you shouldn't sleep with a prisoner, because I think, and we're talking about we're going to talk about the Central Park Five later on in the show on that note. But this is one of those situations where you say to yourself, like, where does your conscience come in and say, wait, I'm doing a really bad thing? Like, when does it hit you? When does the other Gucci drop? And as a correction officer, where your job is to uphold the law, you realize that you're committing crimes in jail, smuggling pills in your shoes and in your underwear and your hair, and then using those pills, and these drug dealers using the pills to buy all these expensive cars, and you're driving the car around like you don't work at the prison. And what makes matters worse is, and when the story is scathing with more and more pieces to it. What makes matters worse that when the other prison guards come around, they say, "All right, we're going to now sweep. We're gonna sweep the prison and check all the cells." These corrections officers are tipping them off and saying, "Hey, listen, they're getting ready to sweep, so make sure you hide all your contraband. Hide the contraband that we just brought into you." These corrections officers have really created a twisted web and weave of destruction in the Baltimore prisons, and it's very, very sad. It's very sad. Now, ultimately, the guy who's the Martin O'Malley, the governor of Maryland, the guy who he sort of appointed to be the head of prisons, have taken responsibility, saying, the buck stops with him because he's a leader of that division, and I understand that. But at the same time, I think the buck stops with these correction facility officers. Where was your morals? Where was the I pledged to do the right thing? I pledged to uphold the Constitution. I have pledged to all these things. Where'd that go? You thought you thought personal gratification and driving around in a Mercedes-Benz that you did not own, because they didn't own these Benz, and that's like the crazy part. It's like these prisoners were pimping the guards, even though the prisoners had no control. Really, this is like a real sick game of mind control here. Because the prisoners are behind bars, they have absolutely no freedom. The guards are supposed to watch over the prisoners and have all the freedom in the world, and yet the people with no freedom has now taken away the freedom for the guards. And they control the guards who had all the freedom. It's like this weird, twisted, cyclical sort of moral conundrum that it's almost to the point where it's beyond reproach. Like I can't even explain it. As I explain it, my mind goes, what were you thinking? My mind goes, you should be behind bars, and you should join, your boyfriend Tavon behind bars, and y'all can have a good time and get more tattoos of each other on your neck and your wrist and blah, 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 blah.